Good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in. This is Midweek Motivation. One of the areas in which I tend to lack a little bit of mercy in is when people feel like they are deserving of a certain type of treatment, or that they are owed a certain type of treatment. I think that people are going to be treated the way they quote-unquote advertise themselves. And the way they advertise themselves is going to come across in their attitudes, the way they dress, the way they conduct themselves, the friends they choose, and you could probably name a couple of others. However, with all those in mind, the outsider is still challenged to not judge a book by its cover. However, the cover is going to explain a little bit of what the book is like. So when we expect our treatment to be a certain way just because, then I think we're selling ourselves short of any responsibility on our own. And so that brings us to this quote by Dennis Holy. And it says, "Expecting the world to treat you fairly because you are a good person is a little like expecting the bull not to attack you because you are a vegetarian." So why should those around you treat you a certain way? Why is it that you deserve to be treated in a certain way? Common decency says we should treat people with kindness anyway. But when a person starts to not appreciate the kindness that they are receiving, then problems can arise. When I was in full-time ministry, I dealt a lot with helping people with benevolent help. And that type of benevolent help that I generally was helping with was usually monetary in nature. Usually trying to help them with a hotel room or food or gas, or sometimes they just wanted money in general. But there were times that resources were offered that just wasn't good enough. Here's one example. In my first ministry job, there was a man who was coming through town and he was wanting to be able to get a hotel room. Well, we had recently put in a shower in our church building for people that were coming through town like that, or maybe for other activities. And so as he was asking for that, then this shower was offered as he was wanting to get cleaned up. But he refused that. And you know what his reason was? And I quote, "I need to soak in a tub." Think about it. He had the opportunity to be clean, but he wanted something more. On another occasion, one person who was wanting some help more monetarily, but not necessarily a money handout, I believe it was maybe a bus ticket. But I was asking him some different questions before we were going to be able to pay for this bus ticket. And he says, "I don't think I need to beg for help." And I says, "You're not having to beg. We're trying to offer you this help." But the way he was thinking he was having to beg. And he was getting very defensive about this. And I think he overall said, "Just fine, just forget the whole thing." He was expecting a certain type of treatment, something beyond just kindness. And I wasn't giving him what he wanted. I don't know if you've ever been guilty of having an expectation from someone and then not receiving it of what you thought you were going to get. We probably all have, actually. But as Jesus is our great example in many, many ways, think about when he was put on the cross. What is it that he did to all the onlookers or all the people that were around? What did he do to them? Did he just shoot some lightning zaps at them? Did he take away some of their lives? Did he do some kind of voodoo-like torture on them? Did he do some kind of retaliation with name-calling as he was being called names? Did he expose their sins and make them feel really bad? No, he didn't do any of that. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 19 through 23 explains exactly what he did, and it says it this way. "For it is commendable if someone bears up under the pain of unjust suffering, because they are conscious of God. But how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. To this you are called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example, that you should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When they hurled insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly." Wow, what an example for us. As Jesus was on the cross, he didn't do any of those things that I was describing earlier about zapping people, torturing them, even saying names in retaliation. But friends, he was our perfect example. He shows us what it means to be able to treat others in a great way, even though they may not always treat us the best way. And so may we be challenged and encouraged to be more grace givers rather than more retaliation givers in our life. I know it can be difficult. I know there's many times that I slip up and I want to just make people hurt when they have hurt me. But Jesus is our example. And he shows us what it means to be able to treat others the way that we should be treated. The idea that he was on the cross and he didn't hurl any insults at him. He didn't do any of those things. And so it's a challenge for me, and I hope it's a challenge for you, to be able to try to hold your tongue, even hold your thoughts at times, and to be more grace-giving, rather than be expectation-filled or retaliation-giving, as sometimes people do hurt our feelings. And so now it's your turn. When have you had to be a grace giver? When has somebody done something to you that really bothered you, but you had to maybe turn the other cheek or be able to be one who gave that grace? I appreciate you tuning in to this week's Midweek Motivation. It's always a great opportunity to be able to see you and be able to speak to you. And so may you find ample opportunities this week to be able to give grace to others. Hopefully they're not doing something where it's going to be offending you, but still an opportunity to give grace, because we know that Jesus gave a lot of grace to us, and he continues to do that. Again, thanks for tuning in. God bless, and have a great week.